Good evening and welcome to another edition of Behind the News on Voice on the Move Network. My name is Elijah and it's another good day. We are going behind the headlines, looking at what is making waves across the world. We know there's a tall man from the US who's playing golf in Scotland. We'll touch a bit on his visit to the other part of Europe. We are going also to be taking a look at the issues that are currently taking place on the African continent. There's just one main issue that we'll be looking into. That's regard the activities of the International Court of Justice, where there are people who have been prosecuted from the African continent regarding their war crimes. But let me say that we invite your comments during the show. We also invite your questions and your contributions on this show. It's a conversation. We are looking at issues across the continent and across the world. We have chosen two topics for this evening to focus on. As usual, I have my guests, one in Johannesburg, the other one in Durban. We are looking at the issues from different perspectives. I've got Dinyiko Mkhwanazi, who is here to make a contribution, as usual, but we also have from Durban, we have Joe Mhlanga, who is also looking into these issues from another perspective, as we know that he regularly gives comment on issues of geopolitics. I know that yesterday he was on RT, also giving comment on the latest issues that were taking place, but he's been there many, many times before. But we also appreciate the contribution of Dinyiko, who's also here, an academic and a person of knowledge and good insight when it comes to these matters. So we're going to start right away. We're not going to waste any time. As indicated, Donald Trump in Scotland is spending 5 days there, but I was listening to a radio station in the UK. It's called Smooth Radio. I listen to their bulletins there on a regular basis. It's largely a music station, but they go on to news, and they reported on Trump's visit to the UK, and they had nothing to say about his first day there. They said, well, today he's just playing golf. Playing golf is a way of relieving himself from the stress that he's currently going through. We know there's a lot of issues inside his country in the US regarding the Epstein files. There are many other issues. There's conflict with Barack Obama as well. Barack Obama, we saw in the week, he fired back strongly against the statements made by current President Donald Trump. But we always know, when you look at issues beyond the headlines, you realize that there's actually so much more beyond what people are currently doing. It's either a diversion or it's a strategy to focus you on something else other than the main issue. But enough about that. That's just an observation in terms of what is happening. But we are looking into two issues. The first one is Donald Trump. Donald Trump expressed his unhappiness with Russia and Putin in particular, the president of Russia. He said that he is unhappy with the continuing war on Ukraine, saying that he does not like the fact that Russia continues its onslaught on Ukraine and that people continue to die, and that, in his own words, quote unquote, not good, the fact that the war was continuing. So he has given Russia 50 days to negotiate a settlement with Ukraine as far as ending the war is concerned. But earlier today, we saw a statement from Russia in which they say they've captured 2 villages in the eastern part of Ukraine. So you have a situation where there's a trade of attacks between Ukraine and Russia. We saw also that there are missiles and drones in particular from both sides that are being sent to do damage on both sides. So that indicates that the war is still ongoing in that part of the world. But let's get into the issue now to say, what is making Trump unhappy with Putin? Because we thought they were friends, but we've seen the relationship is like on and off. Sometimes Putin and Trump speak as though they are not friends, but we know where they come from. So let me start with you, Joe. What do you think is going on between these two powerful men who are leading two big countries? We are seeing here Donald Trump saying that if there's no settlement between Russia and Ukraine, he's going to impose 100% tariffs on Russia. Is that something that you think is going to do?
Even if we can do that, it will have no impact on Russia. I mean, Russia survived the sanctions. I mean, there were over 600 sanctions on Russia collectively. So, hence now it is said that Russia is the most sanctioned country in the world, followed by Iran. But let's go back and check. Trump, when he was campaigning, he said it will take him an hour to end the war. We are going up to 1 year now since he's been in the office and nothing has happened. Now he's the very same person that is happy to send weapons in that region via NATO countries to say Europeans must foot the bill. We had the new German Chancellor, Mr. Merz, said he has two things to say. One to Trump, stay with us. The other one was to Putin, we're not going to give up. Meaning EU still needs America to do the damage. But Trump is looking at this as a business opportunity to say, I'll give you weapons provided you pay for them. So he is enriching the military-industrial complex. But you'll also ask that when he was campaigning, where was the military-industrial complex? This is also to indicate that what you say when you're still campaigning and what you come face to face with when you're in the office is not the same thing. You can talk all you want when you campaign because you need people, you need numbers, you need people to look at you as a token of peace. It is clear now that Trump, he's back, he's against the wall. He needs to show some muscles, he needs to show some balls. Hence, he says he's going to go 100% tariffs on Russia. Well, the only thing or the only people that it will hurt is those businesses or those businessmen who are operating in America from Russia. But at the same time, we must not forget that America is not an island because they also have businesses that they operate in Moscow and other parts of Russia. So the response could be the same, you know. So it's very stupid of him to say he's going to go 100%. They will also go 100%. And tit for tat will continue to be played. So he made the call to Russia thinking he's going to dictate to the Russians what they must do. He understands clearly the conditions and the situation that is happening in that region to get to the situation where it is right now. He was the same guy that said all the settlements that Russia is fighting for, Russia needs to be given those areas and this whole thing can be settled. He started off talking about Crimea, that Crimea historically it's in Russia. So let's not debate that. There was no coup there. There was a referendum where Russians voted to want to go to Crimea. And the treatment that they got from Ukraine, when you speak Russian in Ukraine, you are demonized and because there was a project that they've started of ethnically cleansing all the Russian-speaking people in Ukraine. Strange. Zelensky himself is a Russian-speaking Ukrainian. So it's now confusing, this project that they wanted to do. So in 2014, there was a sitting that happened in Minsk in Belarus where they agreed on these issues to say, stop what you are doing, stop the persecutions of Russian-speaking Ukrainians in those areas. It was Luhansk, the Donbas region. before the issue on Crimea, because it was clear that Crimea had already decided to move from 2012, 2013. So, but they wanted to cling on Donbass being the economic hub, industrial part, the mines and all these other things are in those areas. So they wanted to, in fact, the NATO plan wanted to use those areas as buffer zones should they want to go toe-to-toe with Russia. So Russia delayed 8 years while they thought Ukraine will come to their senses. So it did not happen. So they were left with no option. And also, Russia understood very well that once you are in Ukraine, you are in Russia. Because when the Nazis were going to destroy the Soviet Union, they used the same route. So Russia did not forget the history of what happened. They know once you are in Ukraine, you are in Russia. It's no longer a doorstep, you are inside. So, but we question why all of a sudden Trump forgot about all those things that he championed, all those things that he showed understanding. He fooled the whole world to appear as if now he's the token of peace. He will just give Russians what they want, then the settlement will be done. Whereas the war machine that rings in Europe, it says, no, Russia is not going to stop. It's going to go after all those European countries. They want to conquer Europe, and of which that is not the case. You cannot delay 8 years and be accused that you want to conquer the whole of Europe. Russia has its own internal problems under sanctions. Financially, they still need to stabilize the Russian ruble. They still need to improve the relationships with the new payment system that they've created with Iran. They still want to be in full good terms and cooperation with China. They don't have time to conquer anyone, whereas they still have their own internal problems. So it is shocking. It is mind-blowing to see that Trump came as a person who wanted to champion peace. But some of us, we knew that as an American president, you cannot sit there if you're not going to feed or oil the war machine that has kept that country for centuries. They thrive on war. They thrive on weapons. They thrive on chaos. We see these things that are happening in Israel. They come and talk something else, but they give tons and tons of weapons that are dropped, bombs that are dropped in Palestine with defenseless against a country that doesn't even have an army, against a country that when there's people are fighting, but they use lobs and slings, but still they cannot sustain that kind of a war. So we clearly, we are very, very aware that he was just saying that from his own personal view, but the reality that he got in Washington, D.C. is totally different from the reality he's faced with.
Yeah, all right. Tinyuko, what's your initial reaction to the comments made by Trump? Is he just saying this so he can go off and play golf while we analyze what he has said and there's nothing that's going to happen? Or you think there's substance to it?
Yeah, as Kokwani has alluded, I loved when Trump said he's going to end the war between Russia and Ukraine in a few hours. Why am I saying that? Because we look at the nature of the United States of America. The United States of America, for a president to be powerful, his foreign policy must be about abusing other countries. What he has done in Iran, it's not surprising. They are supposed to do that. That is their culture, because they don't use diplomacy as a way of creating relationship with other countries so that they be able to get what they want. So they use the push, and then the abuse of other countries. They must get things by force. What he has said to Trump, that I respect the man, he's intelligent, and I didn't buy it. I knew that what is coming through his mouth is not what is in his heart, because he was trying to manipulate the Russians, but it won't work because Russians are not idiots. They have learned that the relationship between the United States of America and the entire Western countries, EUs, it's not going to benefit the global South. And Russia is a threat. Same applies with China, and also in the context of the BRICS countries, because you can see that the strategies that they are coming are challenging the Americans. Let's look at what BRICS is doing. It's something that challenges the dollar of the Americans. We look at also the issue of how SPIF was implemented and its all strategic operations and areas. It's a threat to the Western countries. There's no way Trump will be saying good things about the Americans. These people have been lying since the beginning of the earth. We were talking about the 6-day war between Israel and the Middle East. What happened? The Americans were behind this. So they say something else and then act differently. So it's their culture. There's no way we'll see a good relationship between Russia and America. So if it happens, it will be a way of putting Russia under their shoulders so that they capture the Russians, so that they mustn't act against them. Because he once said that it was a mistake that the G8 fell apart. We're supposed to have the G8 so that they capture Russia, not to fight against the Americans and the global North in general. So I never bought a story that he's willing to ensure that the war between Russia comes to an end. It's a businessman. He understands that when there's war, they benefit, and I'm convinced that even the Russians themselves, they are not fooled by what he has said. They incorporated on the negotiation between the Ukraine and themselves, because they wanted to show the world that they are not the ones who are starting the war, but the West. If the West is able to try to expand to Ukraine, obviously they want to conquer Russia. We know the history of the Cold War, and they were not supposed to invite Ukraine to be part and parcel of NATO. There's no way when you are against NATO and America wants to be your friend. We know that America is the father of all the European countries. They kiss the shoes of the Americans so that NATO continue operating, and we can see that NATO is no more, has fallen apart. It's an institution that is history. They say this and then they operate differently. One good example about Germany is stating that they are willing to reserve 5% so that they use this as the war tools to fund their war tools, but they don't afford. But they are saying that America, please be our father. Don't run away from us. So I don't buy anything that comes from this gentleman. He's just a liar. You look at even also his stories on what's happening and what he has done on the issue of manipulating small children in the relationship with his evil man who has been sleeping with children. That is not a person you can trust when it comes to the stories of making significant relationship. Recently, he accused our president, saying that his leg is not healing because our president, the stories of you can actually think he connects his mouth to the brains when he talks. He just say things that are embarrassing. I don't think even his own children are valuing what comes from the mouth of that man. If it's witchcraft, he witched himself, because he's not somebody one can trust. Even his own country are not trusting him, because you look at the number of protests that are happening in America. So who are you, if you are Russian, to trust the person that can be trusted by his own people?
Yeah, but let's talk about Russia now. Where is Russia's economy at? Is it strong? Is it sustainable? Is it self-reliant? And to what extent is it dependent on trade with the United States of America? Joe?
Strange enough, they grew I think it's 4.2% from the time they started their military operation in Ukraine. This shocked America. They thrive under the sanctions. I must also indicate that many years ago, I was having a conversation with you about sanctions. And then you said to me, no, sanctions are not bad if the country has good leaders. So you said to me, you taught me about BB Bakeries, that car, the Toyota Castellion, Eskom, Sosol, is it ISCO, the steel company, and Spornet, what else? There's many other companies that when you are sanctioned and you have a good leadership, you come up with something that for us by us, you know. So that's what the Russians did. They went through that idea of saying for us by us, let's look for people who are going to buy the oil from us and the gas. But guess what happens? The top countries that bought Russian oil, if you look at the list, it's United States of America. They're number one in buying Russian oil. And Japan, Japan is supporting Ukraine, but they were also second in buying Russian oil. When Israel wants Russian oil, who they send? India. India buys Russian oil because of the BRICS, and then they diverted, rerouted to Israel, or rerouted to Israel to America. So what you start to see is the lies that the media will tell you while these guys are doing something else. It was strange for me to understand that there are factories that are operating in Russia, manufacturing ammunition that is being sent to US. I think that now has been cut off because Russians were saying, we're not going to manufacture ammunition that we send to America, but America is still buying, because even in South Africa, we buy Russian ammunition. Some guns that are manufactured in America, they're manufactured in America, like your AR-15. It does well with Russian ammunition. It does not do well with the EU rounds, but it will use the Russian ammunition because it's loaded differently, it's manufactured differently. So you will see that you would have expected the Russians to collapse during these circumstances where a lot of companies pulled out of Russia because of the sanctions. But I can tell you that some French companies pulled out, they went back. VW opened the biggest plant in Russia. Your Starbucks left and the Russians took over. McDonald's, they changed the name, but the menu is still the same. There's few other companies like your Coco Chanel, all these companies have left. That has given China an opportunity to come in and say, Russians will help you manufacture it. They were buying these things from us anyway. So we're going to give it to you cheap and then continue to trade. If you can consume the policy that we did in the past 45 years, we had to create our own economical systems and physical economy to sustain ourselves. Russians are the top arms manufacturers themselves. They have their own military industrial complex. You know, they have their own countries where they sell technology to, like, for example, Iran. So there's a lot of exchange of technology. But here's the thing. In 2012, we were told that there was a shooting at the newspaper. If you still recall, I don't know if both of you still recall, a thing or a newspaper agency called Charlie Hebdo. Some terrorists went to shoot at Charlie Hebdo, but they dropped their passport. I mean, how do you go to shoot and you drop your passport in the sea? They wanted to divert the attention. Then we later found out that the CIA, it was a CIA operation because France was manufacturing 2 massive warships for Russia. And Francis Hollande then was the president of France. Then, but Russians were smart enough to draft a contract that will say, should you cancel this deal, you're still going to pay our money twice. Francis Hollande trusted that you'll be able to pull it. So CIA said, you cannot arm the enemy. They created that. All the world leaders went to France. They did that big march for the Charlie Hebdo killings. Soon after that, Macron came to the office because there was still some sort of cooperation between France and Russia, especially the farming industry. The French farmers were saying, where do you want us to take these crops to? The Italian farmers were saying, where do you want to take these crops to because we sell it to Russia? And we have been doing this since the beginning of time. So you are coming in to say we cannot do this. So what did the Russians do? They had to improve their own farming systems because now they've been cut off. They had to fast track that with the help of some of the South African farmers as well. So they created systems that should this happen, this is what we're going to do. If they close here, we're going, even Nord Stream 1 operated. Nord Stream 2, that, by the way, it's owned partly by Germany to supply gas to Germany. But Americans want to bomb that. But Germany did not understand that they consented to that where they cut themselves with gas. In 2014-15, there was a situation whereby UK said, why do we keep on buying Russian gas? Yes, it's cheap, but we need to come up with other ways. Then that conversation with James Cameron and Boris Johnson, then Theresa May came to the office and she said, no, I'm not going to talk to Putin. We are cutting. This was summer. When winter came, she had to make the call to Putin to say, yes, I know we don't get along. Our people are going to freeze and die. Please help us with gas. 2 big ships landed in UK to deliver gas from Russia. So they act as if they don't like Russia, but they want Russian products. Now, one more thing. Whenever you do a deal with Putin, he does not want cash. He wants gold. So he does not take cash. Whenever Americans are doing a deal with him, buying something, he does not take the dollar. He does not take the American currencies. He takes the gold in exchange of gold. So he is collecting gold. So when they get to a position where their backs are against the wall, they have biggest reserves for gold. They will trade that gold to sustain their own economy. So based on that, they were smart enough to be able to stay in the position where they can keep their countries afloat, and they make sure that they have China, they have Iran, they have few other countries that are not part of what's actually happening, like what Tiniko will always say, global South countries, of which not all global South countries are trusted because some leaders are suspect. They still believe in Washington, D.C. But Russia was able to identify countries that they could trade with to ensure that the economy stay afloat or even improve for that matter, because it grew 4.1 or 4.2%. So the economy is stable.
Okay, no, that's fine. Let me just remind our viewers, those that are watching, that they are welcome to this conversation. It's just our Sunday evening dinner conversation, which we host every Sunday evening from 6:30. And we just look at different issues of interest, those issues that would have attracted our attention and would have discussed somewhere in the corridors, in the streets, in the car, somewhere, wherever we go, we would have discussed these things, but we feel we need to get you involved in them as well. We have spent the past 30 minutes talking about Russia. We have spent the last a few minutes as well, focusing on the stability of the Russia's economy. But we're also looking at that in the context of the comments made by the US President Donald Trump, who's currently in Scotland playing golf. Of course, there's 4 days of negotiations and discussions with the UK government. But, you know, one of the things that you both have said today in the first segment, which is focusing on the Ukraine-Russia-US relationships, you talked about the relationship between China and Russia. China and Russia are neighbors. They actually share 4,300 kilometers of border between the two countries, and they also have a comprehensive agreement and relations where they support each other. They also have a cultural exchange. They have a good, long, rich history between the two countries. They protect each other. They trade between the two. That's why, Joe, you were mentioning that when US companies exited, China was very quick to come in to assist Russia. It's because of their long-standing cultural, economic, trade, as well as diplomatic relations, which they share between the two of them. I remember when I was in China, I spent a month in China. When I looked across the border, I said, which is the next country from China? I realized that it was actually Russia. But when I was in the Chinese museum in Shanghai, I checked the history between the two countries. They share a lot together, including the economies, the origins of their economies. That's enough about the two countries. I would like us to spend the last 15 minutes of this conversation focusing on the African continent. Of course, Europe will always be part of the conversation because we were once colonized by European countries. So here the focus is on the ICC prosecutions. We have a long list of African leaders, rebels, African persons who have occupied different positions, who have been referred to the ICC for prosecution. But before we go into that conversation, let's, do we have a video? We don't have a video. If we don't have a video, there are these two gentlemen who are in sharp focus today. They were referred to the ICC for prosecution, and there's been concerns that the ICC seems to be focusing on the African continent and the leaders, and the bias there is a huge cause for concern from commentators who say, why is it that the ICC is focusing on African people who are involved in all sorts of efforts aimed at bringing stability, peace on the continent, but of course, they are charged for war crimes as a result of their activities. So that's this one issue that we're looking at today. Tinyiko, I'm going to come to you now to just give us your perspective on this one. What is your view? There's this concern that Africa seems to be a continent of interest by the ICC when it comes to prosecutions. But my reading is that the African countries themselves are referring these cases to the ICC for attention. What is your initial reaction when it comes to that particular accusation against the ICC?
Yeah, I think first of all, we need to look at ICC. Who is this animal? Who is this body? It is said to be independent, but to me, it's not independent. It's controlled by other institutions and other countries. Why am I saying that? It's because we have 120 countries that have subscribed to ICC, but we also have countries that are not part of the ICC, one being the United States of America, China, and Russia. And those countries, when they say no to the approach of ICC, they mean it, and nothing will happen. So the ICC, yes, is not the agency to the UN, but it depends highly on the UN administration and also in the context of the logistic. And then looking at that, it tells me that the ICC is not independent. It's an institution that it's being controlled, because if the UN through its own council can refer courts to the ICC, or the other way around, that's demonstrated that the ICC it's not independent. It needs assistance from other institutions. Once it does that, it means that it's subject to be compromised. And then we look at what it needs on the institution like the UN. We look at how the World Bank and IMF can utilize the ICC to implement their interests. So in that manner, we find that the ICC it's not an institution that it's reliable. And ICC historically it targets African countries. Wealthier countries or more powerful countries are not even touched at all. The institution lacked funding or got limited funding and staff. Hence, we have lots of court cases that are not being taken care of. The institution it's also vulnerable for political powers, because there are those who say that you can't touch me because 1, 2, 3, and 4 country can protect me. So it relies on other countries to arrest those that are against the principles of the ICC. So it's so slow and complex. It takes years for the process to be implemented. We know the story of Burundi and Philippines that was threatening to withdraw from the ICC, and that demonstrates that the ICC cannot be able to do what it's supposed to be doing. We have the story coming from ICC itself, indicating that 72 individuals with proceedings against 38 currently ongoing. So with the investigation process, they are very slow, so, and they are not able to do what they're supposed to be doing. And that includes 32 fugitives and 1 person being arrested by national authorities, an individual in trial and appeal stage. So the institution with small resources and then lack of logistics arrangement with the reliability to the UN, it's not able to do what it's supposed to be doing. We can count the number of of its success. It's so tiny. It's a small number. So to me, who controls the ICC? It's the UN, because the countries that are supposed to be favored by the UN are not being favored by the UN, and at the same time are the ones that are suffering under the hand of the ICC. So the ICC, it's meant or designed to deal with African countries. We look at the number of cases that they have implemented in around the world. The story in Democratic Republic of Congo on Thomas Lubanga in 2012, where he was said that he recruited the children as soldiers. And then also the issue of Uganda and on Dominic Owene in 2021, where this gentleman had 61 counts of rape, forced marriage, and child soldier conscription. But you go to powerful countries like the United States of America, and their stories in Iraq and Iran, nobody touched them. We have the United Kingdom having accused of the war in Iraq or a war crime in Iraq. They were not touched. The story coming from the ICC was to state that there is not enough information or sufficient information to prosecute the United Kingdom. We have France, who got Italy and the story in Germany, but nobody touches them. So the story home that is about the Central African Republic, yes, it's us, our own brothers, who take ourselves to the ICC to ensure that we punish ourselves. But why are we doing that? Because the ICC, it's not neutral. It's not able to do what it's supposed to be doing 100% because it's compromised. The story of the Central Republic, African Republic, started in 2002, where there were conflict between two government forces and rebels. The story of the Christian against the non-Christian who are Muslim. Yes, it's a painful story because people were raped and then those were killed. Some were removed their arms and legs. Horrible stories that for a human being to watch such stories, it's so painful. But the question is the ICC doing what's supposed to be doing as an institution? To me, no, because they are not honest on how they operate. So maybe as African countries, we need to come up with our own institution that will be honest in order to reprimand ourselves as African countries. Maybe the global south came with such, because we see horrible stories happening, taking place in the United States of America, within its own countries, and then also against other countries. But the ICC is not able to persecute that, because having not being the member of the ICC doesn't necessarily mean that you won't be persecuted. You will be, but the institution doesn't do that because it's weak, doesn't have resources, logistics arrangement depends on the UN. So to me, I really don't understand why the Africans still have hope on the UN and institutions like the ICC.
Yeah, Joe, what is your view when it comes to the suspicion that some of the countries on the African continent are influenced by their former colonizers, or the UN, as Dinyoko was suggesting, or those countries that are controlling the ICC, to go to the ICC to settle other agenda that is not obvious to what the eye can see? Do you also subscribe to that conspiracy?
Yes, I do. Here I have the whole thing about ICC. It says the International Criminal Court Justice has publicly indicted 72 individuals with proceedings against 38 currently ongoing. This includes 32 fugitives. One person arrested by national authorities and individuals in pre-trial and appeal stages, while the ICC had issued arrest warrants for 46 individuals. Less than half have been successfully detained and brought before the court. A total of 31 cases have been tried before the court, leading to 10 convictions and 4 acquittals. One of those acquittals, it had Uhuru Kenyatta. And if you look at all this, out of the 72, 50, it's Africa. But what is the trick about it? All these countries that are having issues or cases referred to ICC, they have something. There's natural resources, there's interest. These guys that are tried now, remember, Central Africa Republic is the first country in Africa to want to replace French, to want to replace English with Russian. And it's being done in schools. So are these guys being punished because they are now aligned with Russia in Central Africa Republic? You talk of DRC, you talk of Libya, you talk of South Sudan. These are all the countries that their leaders were once in good terms with the West. Now, when they switch, when they change the tune, it's a different story. Most people don't understand that the West has put Muammar Gaddafi in position. And when he turned against them to say, no, now I'm going to internalize the strategy, I'm going to put the struggle to put my people first, then it did not sit well with them. Then we know what happened to him and many other leaders. So these guys come into groups, give both sides of the conflict arms and ammunition to fight against each other, see where the war goes. Whoever wins becomes the leader. If you go against them, then they send you to ICC. That's why all these cases are Africa focused, because we have things that they want to sustain their own economies. So you turn against them, they throw you under the bus, and they're not even shy about it. Hence, majority of the people in media houses, when they run the story in conflict zones, in the war zones, these people live in the jungle. How come there's no single media house that will question? Yes, we see these guys, they've got arms, but who's supplying bullets? You live in the forest. Are you having the machines to make bullets there? No. They're airdropped. By who? Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's looking at those areas. So when these guys go to war against each other, it's because the external factors are at play. But they must understand that once the external factors are done playing, you will pay a heavy price, where they will take over the country, or they will give you a suit from your military regalia. They will put you on the suit and you lead. They give you a script on what to do. You know, we saw it in Kenya. Ruto, he came, he said, no, it's time to do away with the West. As soon as he got into the office, first place he went is Washington, D.C. to go and tell the boss that, yes, I've checked in for work. And soon after that, he wanted to borrow so much money that people in Kenya wouldn't be able to pay. Till today, they still have a problem there. So even with him, he was also referred there. But the case was quickly removed. Nothing happened. So he could have been blackmailed with this ICC thing. So they use this ICC for their own benefit. Mr. Bolton, who was an advisor to the first coming of Donald Trump, he loves war so much. He's the one who pronounced that we just have to bomb The Hague. If ever they do something, we just have to bomb that thing. It's useless. But they set it up. So it's coming to haunt them. And you will see, but at the same time, they are not sure how to manage this, because they want it to do the dirty work for them, but it must not turn against them. Tinubu did mention the issues of Iran, Afghanistan, Libya, Sudan, all the wars that they've created. Well, they are clean. Their hands are clean regardless of what they do. So yes, ICC is being used by them, but we must also look at the African leaders who still believe on the master, and they get these advisors. I mean, John Major was an advisor somewhere in Africa. I think it was Burundi, or where's Paul Gokame? Rwanda. Gordon Brown is also an advisor in one of these countries. Tony Blair is also an advisor to. So you really think they're advising for the interest of Africans? No, they're not. They're advising these guys basically to continue feed the European economy with your resources, so that you have zero control on your own economy. So should they want to do something, they just refer these cases to ICC. They make sure the media splash you, put you in the headlines. You have nowhere to run to, and you have no platform to come out and use that platform to speak for yourself. So ICC, it's a strategic tool for the West that will be used against their opponents. They did it in Europe, in Eastern Europe, where Bill Clinton bombed your Bosnia, Sarajevo, all those countries. But those leaders that were fighting against America, they were sent to The Hague. You know, one guy there, even they brought him poison. He drank poison and he killed himself while he was still being tried at ICC. So there's no real good stories that we can talk about ICC, except that it's a tool that the West will use to silence opponents, to intimidate Africans, But let's look at the countries where all these people are from. There's always a story out of the whole entire list of people that are indicted by ICC. There's always a story in each of those countries where those countries need to feed the American or the European economies by their own natural resources.
All right. In conclusion, I'm going to ask you to give me one-word answers. Tinyeko, are you then saying that the ICC is not a fair arbiter of global conflict?
It's a tool that is used by the Westerns against the non-Western countries, because which country in the West has been prosecuted?
Joe, are you saying that we should not, as countries of the world and observers of these events, are you saying that we should not trust the ICC at all because it is not a fair, just, transparent and open entity that is there to prosecute matters on equal basis?
Unless if countries are only African countries, then we can trust ICC. If Benjamin Netanyahu is still running free, we cannot trust ICC.
All right, thank you very much. Let's leave it there. It's been a good hour of a lovely conversation. And thank you very much to all who watched. We really appreciate your support. Let me start by thanking our technical producer, Zbusiso Wanda, in controls. And let me thank my two guests, Tinyiko Mkhwanazi as well as John Mhlanga. Thank you very much for watching. It's been another Sunday evening of an engaging conversation. Join us again next week, Sunday, same time, 18:30 on the same channel. That's us on Voice on the Move Network. That was another edition of Behind the News. Thank you very much and good night.